I've decided to swap the English Premier League and the Scottish Premiership rounds to see how the Scottish clubs do in the English Premier League. To do this, I've moved Villa, Bournemouth, Brentford, Brighton, Palace, Everton, Fulham, Leeds, Forest, Southampton, West Ham and Wolves into the Scottish Premiership, whilst I've taken Aberdeen, Celtic, Dundee, Hearts, Hibernian, Kilmarnock, Livingston, Motherwell, Rangers, Ross County, St Johnstone and St Mirren and moved them into the English Premier League. To do this, I went onto the editor, set the Premier League by reputation and moved the bottom 12 clubs. This left Man City, Liverpool, Chelsea, United, Tottenham, Arsenal, Newcastle and Leicester all in the Premier League. So if we go ahead and look at before the simulation, we can now see that the two leagues are filled with the swapped clubs. Every league below is exactly the same. Now if we look at the odds, the 8 Premier League teams that stayed are actually in the same order they were reputation, funnily enough. Then all the Scottish teams are listed at the bottom, with Kilmarnock, Livingston and St Johnstone all in the bottom 3 for the predictions. Even the Media Dream 11 doesn't have a single Scottish club with a player in it. So now if we move ahead to the end of the first season, we can see in the Premier League, the top 8 only includes the English clubs that got left behind originally. Celtic and Rangers fill the top of the Scottish clubs, and St Mirren, Dundee and St Johnstone all get relegated. Whilst in the League Cup, the furthest the Scottish club got was Aberdeen reaching the quarter-final, whilst in the FA Cup, Rangers managed to reach the semi-final. Now if we go have a look at how the English clubs are doing in the Scottish Premiership, we can see that Leeds have won the title, while Crystal Palace have managed to get relegated. Villa, Everton, Brighton and Forest fill the rest of the European spots. Brighton went along and won the first Scottish League Cup for the English clubs, while in the Scottish Cup, Everton went along and beat West Ham in the final 3-0. But now if we move ahead to Season 2, we're now going to have to look at a couple more things. But starting with the English Premier League, and again the 8 Premier League teams that got left behind are the top 8 again. This time Blackburn, Watford and Norwich have all joined the Premier League and have finished 11th, 12th and 13th. They separate Celtic and Rangers and the rest of the Scottish teams. However, Livingston, Ross County and Motherwell have all gone down to the Championship. We've now got to see how the other teams have done. Surely having 1 year of Premier League experience has got to do something to help them bounce back. At least you'd think so. But in actual fact, St Mirren finished 20th, while Dundee and St Johnstone actually got relegated down to League 1. Now in the League Cup, Rangers managed to reach the quarter-final, while Hearts lost down the semi-final of the FA Cup. Whilst this season in the Scottish Premiership, Southampton have gone on instead to win the title, with Inverness getting relegated back to the Championship. However, clearly the Scottish League is more financially difficult for these English clubs. Bournemouth have gone into administration. Now, if we drop down to the Championship to see if Palace have managed to bounce back to the Premiership, and they have, first attempt, straight back up as champions. Southampton managed to win the League Cup this season, and the Scottish Cup. So they've managed to do the Scottish treble. Instead of jumping ahead another year, we're going to jump straight ahead to Season 5, so straight to the summer of 2027. Now the English Premier League still has the top 8 as the top 8 we left behind after 5 years, but we only have 3 Scottish teams left now: Rangers, Celtic and Hibernian. All 3 of them only just survived, with Bolton, Swansea and QPR going down instead. But that means we're missing 9 other Scottish teams across the Football League. So if we drop down to the Championship, instantly we can see Aberdeen lost out in the playoffs, while Motherwell, Hearts, Kilmarnock and St Mirren are all sitting in the Championship. So we need to carry on dropping down the leagues. So if we move down to League 1, Dundee and St Johnstone have both missed out on promotion by losing the playoffs, while Livingston missed out on a playoff spot altogether. But we're still missing 1 more team, so we've got to drop down 1 more league and hope that they haven't fallen into the Football League altogether. So in League 2, Ross County have actually won the playoffs and they're on their way back to League 1. So all the Scottish teams from next season will fill the top 3 leagues. Celtic have performed the best over the last couple of years. They reached a round of 16 in 25, the quarterfinals in 26 and the semi-finals in 27. 1 further stage each season, maybe next year they'll reach a final. Moving over to the FA Cup, similar situation: Celtic semi-final in 25, Motherwell 26 reached quarter-final, and Rangers lost out in the semi-final against Man City in 27. Now, let's move over to Scotland to see how all the English clubs have been performing in there. Now, West Ham have won the league, but instantly looking at this league, we can see Bournemouth won a Europa League spot, but they finished in the bottom half, so they must be cup winners at some point. Dundee have got the 12th spot in the Premiership this season, which means we're missing one team, which, quick glance, looks like it's Nottingham Forest. So we're going to have to jump down to the Championship and see if they've managed to bounce back. But before we do that, it's worth noting that again, another club have gone into administration. Everton have managed to get into administration this season, but also looking back at last season, Crystal Palace got into administration as well. So far, that's 3 English clubs that got into administration and all have managed to survive rather than go down. Now in the Championship, Nottingham Forest have managed to bounce back. So next season, it's going to be all 12 original ex-Premier League clubs again. And looking at the past winners over the last 5 years, I think I would have to say, other than Southampton's dominant 23-24 season, I think Leeds have probably been the best performing club. I mean, they've got 2 titles and 2 third place finishes. And after that, it might just be Brighton. So now what we're going to do is we're going to jump to the end of the 10-year experiment and have a look at the English League first and see where everyone's left off. By the end of the 10 years, we've actually managed to gain 1 extra Scottish club than we did over the 5 years, with Motherwell managing to get back up there, but they've managed to get down. So from the looks of it, Rangers, Celtic and Hibernian have all seemingly established themselves as Premier League clubs now. While in the Championship, we've got Kilmarnock, St Johnstone, Aberdeen, Ross County, Hearts and St Mirren. All of them are staying in the league for next season as well, with Kilmarnock losing out in the playoffs. We're going to have to continue dropping down the leagues though to find the rest of them, and in League 1, Livingston are getting back up to the Championship, and Dundee have missed out on the playoffs. So we've actually got all of the teams but Dundee in the top 2 leagues now. Looking through the past seasons, however, we can see the Rangers in the 2025-2026 season. Rangers finished 7th and gained the Europa League spot. This would also be to do with the UEFA changes, where England could potentially have 8 teams in Europe. Now, looking at the League Cups over the last 5 years, Rangers only managed to reach the quarter-final in 28, the quarter-final again in 29. They did one worse the next season in 30, but Aberdeen also reached the round of 16 with them. Then Ross County managed to reach the round of 16 in 31. But when we get to 32, we finally got a Scottish club who reached the final. But they only went and lost to Newcastle 3-0 in the final. Maybe there'll be better success in the FA Cup. So, starting with 28, we had Rangers reach the semi-final. In 29, they reached the semi-final again, losing on penalties this time. In 30, Livingston only managed to reach the quarter-final as the best performing Scottish club. While the following year, Livingston only reached the round of 16, but so did Rangers, both getting knocked out. None of them managed to win any trophies in their 10 years in England. So moving over to Scotland, where I said earlier, I feel like Leeds are the best and then Brighton the second best. I feel like these stats back it up. Leeds now have 6 titles and 2 third place spots. And I also said Brighton seemed to be the second best, where they've got 2 titles now, 4 runner-up spots and 1 third place spot. But if we look at the full table for last season, we can see that Everton clearly won a cup at some point because they're in the bottom half with Europa League spot, but we're missing Nottingham Forest again, so let's drop down 1 league and see if we can find them. So when we actually drop down to the Championship, we can see Forest finished 2nd. They didn't win the playoffs, potentially losing to West Ham, and they didn't even win the title. So they've got to do at least 1 more season in the Championship. But I think we should look at them and see if this has been more of a long-term thing or if this is just a blip. Okay, so they've been in the Championship for 2 years now, and they're going to have to spend a 3rd year. So they seem to be losing their Premiership status and becoming more of a Championship club, a high-level Championship club, but still. But looking through all of the seasons, it does look like Inverness are the best of the rest. They've had 5 promotions in this 10-year spell. All 4 previous times though, they did finish 12th and get relegated, but it just seems to be all the teams have done there. They've got another chance this season at least. A big difference between the Scottish Premiership now to what it was at the beginning of the simulation is that they've actually got 1 extra spot than they did at the beginning. They've now got 3 Champions League spots, 1 Europa League spot and 2 Conference League spots. instead of 2-1-2. Now, looking at the Scottish League Cup, we can see that Leeds seem to be the best. They've been in 5 finals over the 10 seasons. So just like what I was thinking in the league, it seems like the Scottish League Cup may be the same. But it's still quite open. It's just Leeds are the most regular team there from the looks of it. And then the Scottish Cup, Leeds aren't as dominant. 4 finals though, but only 2 wins, which are shared with Southampton 2 and Everton's 2. Now at the end of the simulation, I want to jump to UEFA. I wanted to wait until the end for this, so I wasn't doing it each season and I could just look back at once. Now, looking at the Champions League, we can see from the past finals there hasn't been a single Scottish or English club involved in this swap that have made it to the final. But we do have a lot of the English clubs left in the Premier League reaching the finals. We've got Chelsea, Liverpool and City, Liverpool, City, Arsenal, and City again. So City seems to be performing quite well in the Champions League, it looks like. Moving down to the Europa League, none of the English clubs moved to Scotland have managed to make a final. But we do have Arsenal, Newcastle and United, Leicester, United again, Newcastle again, Man City made a Europa League final, Leicester and United again. The normal English Premier League teams, however, seem to be doing really well in the Europa League, but we haven't seen the likes of Rangers or Celtic reaching this year. So now if we draw down to the Conference League, we can finally see the first time one of the Scottish clubs moved to England have managed to win something, and Rangers in 30-31 have gone on to win the Conference League. Other than that, we've had United win, Tottenham be runners-up, Leicester win twice, United win another title just before Rangers, and then obviously Rangers win their Conference League title. We've actually got Brentford reaching a final, and Brentford were one of the clubs that we moved to Scotland for this experiment, and even though they reached the final, they lost out to Leicester. So that's the end of the 10-year experiment where we swapped English and Scottish clubs. If you'd like me to carry this on for another 10 years to see if they improve any more, let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys later.